Today on the Relationship Renovation podcast, we interview Meygan and Casey Caston from Marriage.Emphasizing, and they're another married couple who's doing amazing things. We talk about their story.
It was pretty much infatuation in the beginning. We really liked each other.
Oh, she was so hot.
And then all the problems started on our wedding night. We not only fell out of love, we grew hatred towards one another.
And how they ended up sort of coming from a broken, kind of messed up relationship into a really beautiful, thriving relationship.
Therapist said two really important things to me. Have you done anything and everything you can to save your marriage so you don't live with regret? If you want to make a better marriage, it starts by making a better you.
And how they've helped couples, hundreds of thousands, it sounds like, from all over the world. So stay tuned to the Relationship Renovation podcast.
Hello all, and welcome to the Relationship Renovation podcast. I'm Tarah Kerwin.
And my name is EJ Kerwin, and we are, we're very excited. We want to just jump right into it today because we're lucky enough to have another couple on, Casey and Meygan Caston from Marriage.Emphasizing. They're relationship coaches. They have a whole community they've built, Marriage.Emphasizing. And as we were chatting before we began, we also feel like, although we don't know each other, some kindred spirit stuff going on because, we kind of have similar stories. So welcome, Casey and Meygan.
So happy you guys can join us today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
Tell us your story. I mean, you guys are in the kind of, helping field around relationship wellness. Tell us your story, please.
Okay, so we're actually college sweethearts. So we met, 22 years ago, which is insane to think it's been that long, but it was pretty much infatuation in the beginning. We really liked each other.
Oh, she was so hot.
Feelings mutual. Felt like he was pretty good looking too. And we dated, we got engaged, said, let's do this forever. We got married, and honestly, dating and engagement was really fun and amazing. And overall, just a really positive experience. And then all the problems started on our wedding night, and literally on our wedding night. And within a 3-year period, we not only fell out of love, we grew hatred towards one another. There was just this demise, this criticism. We had so much emotional baggage we brought into the marriage we didn't even know existed, by the way.
Right.
Completely unaware.
Completely unaware.
And no tools to handle conflict. So our conflict turned into these nasty, long, drawn-out fights where we hurt each other really, really bad.
I tried to control him in any way that I possibly could. So I'm a fighter, he's a flighter. And then he just basically would avoid. So it was like me just chasing him around. And then I would withhold love to try to see if that would work. And anyways, long story short, I really wanted a divorce. He kind of pulled the whole, you need therapy, I don't need therapy. You're the reason why this is happening. I believe that he was the reason this was happening. And so I went to therapy by myself because I had an unwilling partner. And the therapist said two really important things to me that changed my entire life. And she said, have you done anything and everything you can to save your marriage so you don't live with regret? And I knew my answer was no. And she goes, it's okay. About 99% of people that sit on my couch are not doing everything and anything you can. Then she said the second thing, if you want to make a better marriage, it starts by making a better you. Your husband's not here, but you are. And I can show you how to be the healthiest version of yourself, no matter if your marriage makes it or not. And so that's what I did. I committed by myself for, it ended up being about 13 months where I worked on myself and I learned healthy boundaries and communication techniques and how to handle conflict resolution. And I was doing it on my own with the hopes that it would positively influence Casey. And luckily it did.
Yeah. And I was stubborn those 13 months. I was so stubborn. But there was a moment where I remember getting so upset with Meygan. I'm coming in, my face is red. She could see me like a charging bull. And she stopped me in my tracks. She's like, I can tell you're very upset right now. And I really want to hear what you have to say. But can we just take a moment? Why don't you take a walk outside? And so that way we can communicate in a healthy way. And my jaw dropped to the floor. I'm like, wait, you and I used to be sparring partners. And now you've exited the ring. And it was really easy at that point to see who is the unhealthy spouse. And that started me on a change. And you have to know something about Meygan and I. We're very, very competitive people.
Very.
Like when we play cornhole, we're playing Yahtzee, it's trash talking, and it's like, it's definitely competitive space. Even our kids are like, watch out, mom and dad are playing against each other.
We both like to be right. That's the problem. We both like to, we don't like to be on the losing team. Okay.
I realized, like, you know what? I don't want to be the unhealthy one here. I want the change. And one of the things that when we look back, we realize that, if you want to make a better marriage, make a better you, like you said, Meygan, and that's a really hopeful message, because you don't have to sit around waiting for your partner to change. You can actually as they say, become the change you want to see happening. It's true. It really happens inside of relationships.
Yeah.
Well, and when we look at it through like a systems perspective, Meygan, you would be the change agent. It just takes one person in the system to change, and everything has to be different. And the hope is that it's a positive shift. Some people don't like change, so it could be a negative, but I mean, I love that you did that for yourself. And we have a lot of listeners that talk about, well, I have a resistant partner. What can I do? And we say that exactly, like, go work on yourself. How can you have healthier skills? We're not taught any of these skills. We're just taught to like fall in love and have a storybook ending. And it's actually not like that at all. We can testify.
Yeah. I mean, Meygan, so to those people out there where they are the one person who's changing, the other person isn't ready quite yet, what got you through? Like, what kept you 6 months in, or whenever it was when maybe, Casey wasn't quite ready yet or aware yet? Like, what kept you fighting?
Yeah, I mean, my therapist specialized specifically in working with spouses and not couples. I mean, so just like one individual spouse, and she had 7 steps. And so one of those steps was to become self-aware. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, learn everything good and bad, your triggers, what causes you to become emotionally flooded, deal with your childhood baggage, all of that. And I think like an example would be, for years, Casey would tell me, you're controlling, you're being controlling. And I believed that I was not a controlling spouse because I wasn't self-aware. So then as I became more self-aware and realized, you know what, actually, I can be controlling. I like control. I like to feel in control. I do not like to feel out of control. I can actually show up in my marriage very controlling, right? So he would then, as I started to heal and process things, he would say something like, oh, you're controlling. And what I would say is, you know what? You're right. I have been controlling. And he would be like, jaw drop to the floor, like, wait, I've been telling you for 3 years you're controlling, and now you're finally admitting it. But it was that almost like that freedom to say, these are some areas that I really need to work on and grow in my marriage and in my own life. And so I would say number one is to become self-aware and commit to that. And that's an ever ongoing process, right?
Yeah.
We've never arrived. The other thing I would tell someone that's listening is to find a really safe person. Whether it's, a best friend, a therapist, a mentor, a pastor. I had some really great girlfriends who weren't just yes people and didn't tell me, you know what, you should just divorce, or you're always right, Meygan. Like, I didn't need that. I needed people to challenge me to rethink how I was showing up in my marriage and in my life. And I'm so glad that I had a mentor, a therapist, and friends who I could come to when I was struggling, because we shouldn't do life alone.
And then Casey, what was your path? Like you said, there was that one particular conflict where Meygan really slowed it down and didn't allow you guys to spiral off. Like, what happened for you after that moment?
I think watching her change was very inspiring. There is a little known fact about Meygan and I, between both sets of our parents, there are 12 marriages.
Oh, wow.
Meaning, so my mom is actually on her 6th marriage. Okay. So all we know growing up was this disconnection and, watching our parents fight poorly or watching our parents fight and then divorce. Yeah. Like, that's all we knew. And so there was a moment where we felt like, you know what? I don't want to become, and I don't want to walk down the path of my parents. I want to change this. And that was something that we talked about, both of us. And it was a moment for us to go, we need to do something different. Now the problem was is that we didn't have any tools or resources. Like the tools and resources we create today are us talking to Casey and Meygan from years 1, 2, and 3.
Right. I love that.
You know, like if we could talk to our younger versions of ourselves. So I think there was, through hardship and trying to figure this out, that also actually drew us together too, because we're like, we got to figure this out. We have to find a solution.
I also want to say that a big one for Casey and I that we had to overcome was there was a lot of shame and embarrassment about how bad and unhealthy we were. And he was raised in a home where nobody went to therapy. So he didn't see that. That wasn't normalized. Where I was raised in a home where if you get stuck, you ask for help and raise your hand. So hence why I was the first one to go to therapy. And I think that that's something I'm sure you guys, talk about often and deal with couples, is that there's so much shame in marriage and relationship problems. And we're trying to help kill that shame and say, you are not alone. Yeah. Everybody has issues, whether you see it in the highlight reel of Instagram or not. Behind that are hurts and fights and arguments and, things like that. And so I think Casey being open to learning, wow, you know what? You're right, babe. Like if I got diagnosed with cancer, like I'd go to the doctor and get help. Yeah. Or if our kids were failing math, like we would, and we didn't know how to help them, we would hire a tutor. Why don't we get help for our marriage when we're stuck?
Yeah.
Or if our car breaks down, like, and we're not a mechanic, we don't know how to fix it. We're going to go to the dealership or the mechanic to have them fix it. And so I think for me, what I would say for Casey is that him overcoming the fact that there's no shame in getting help. Yeah. And that in fact, actually there's a lot of things out there that will help you. And he felt more confident once he started learning techniques and tools. We call it like our marriage tool belt. Yeah. Like he bought the tool belt, but he didn't have any of the tools to go on the tool belt.
It's
slowly acquiring.
It's almost as ridiculous as making fun of somebody walking into Tony Robbins seminars and saying, what are you doing here trying to be successful and all? Right? We don't shame that for them. But all the top performing athletes, they all have a coach. And so if we never get married for an unhappily ever after. We have relationship goals, right? Of being together, connected, and finding safety and intimacy. And yet we're unwilling to go get help or coaching or tools to actually succeed in that. So it just kind of, the winging it and hoping for happily ever after is just not working for people.
No, and I love you said that, because when we find our person, we're so excited. We're like, we finally found the person that's not going to hurt us. We don't understand that they're going to actually trigger our deepest stuff. And we are not taught these skills. I have so many clients, couples that vulnerability means that means I'll get bulldozed over. That means I'll lose my whole identity that I've built to protect myself. Like there are just so many skills that, and people just feel like they don't need the skills, that they should just be able to do it because it was really easy in the beginning. And, EJ and I know, because I've been a marriage counselor for 21 years. So when we were going through our stuff, I'm like, what just happened? Like I've got all the skills, yet no one told me it was going to be this hard. I'm like taking off in the minivan saying I'm going to divorce you and I'm going to my sister's house. I was like, that's how we really had to live life and go through kind of what you guys had to go through to really be like, wow, there's actually so much more that we don't understand when difficult situations happen or our past is triggered and we don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and it feels like it's almost like really taking it on is like another job on top of having a job. And I don't know when kids came along for you guys and everything else. And that the actual work of trying to figure your own stuff and how it's being triggered in your relationship is just I think it's not just, I think it's overwhelming to me at times. And I think it's definitely overwhelming to somebody who doesn't even have a paradigm for it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and I'm sure you guys get this dynamic because you guys are working together as a married couple for married couples. And I think that's the, wrap your brain around that pole, our marriage is our business and our business is marriage.
Yeah, yes.
And trying to, bifurcate, when is just Casey and Meygan just the playful couple that, is just an average married couple that wants to find connection and happiness, and then switch lanes into becoming experts, but recognizing like, well, but then we just fought last night. So if we're experts, shouldn't we know how to do this well?
That we just talked about that the other day, like how like, especially early on where we'd have these sessions with people and we'd go really deep and we'd be able to conceptualize things for people. And then like internally I'd be thinking like, I am such a fraud. Like I screwed this up every day. And then Tarah would like reinforce that and she'd be like, how can you say it like that to her and them? And then you can't occupy that same space. And I'm like, and I freaking try. Like, I swear to God, I'm trying here. Do you guys relate?
Oh, 100%. I think it's, when we're working with couples, it's not that we're not emotional about it, but we don't know all the ins and outs, right? Like we're not emotionally invested, of course, like they are.
Right.
It's different when it's your own marriage. It's, we've got all our own triggers and stories and hurts and all those things. And so, and even like our version of how we see each other. But yes, we can definitely relate. And I will say this, I was thinking about like her saying like working on your marriage and being busy and having a job. It made me think about one thing that Casey and I have always, I'd say since we started repairing, our marriage, which we've been married almost 21 years. So this was 17 years ago. We were on this journey.
Wow.
We will always make time for each other. Yeah. That was actually one thing we noticed quickly when we got married that we didn't think we needed to be so intentional about. And now we are very intentional with our schedules. We have reminders on our phones because we start fighting if we don't spend quality time together. I mean, right, babe? Like we really do. And so we have to, and it's one of those things we make time for things that matter. So could I watch another episode of The Office again? Sure. I love that show.
That's EJ's favorite show.
Or could I not?
Just saying, Meygan.
Oh, EJ, you're my man. Okay. I love that show. I don't even know how many times I've seen it at this point. It doesn't matter. Right?
It's always good.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I can always watch it. It's always there, but my spouse is in front of me and I could choose to initiate, hey, let's go take a walk around the block, or I can watch an episode of The Office. And so I think we've really tried hard to make sure that we're more intentional with our time. And we kind of are that couple that schedule everything. Like we live by our calendars because we are so busy.
But I love that because Dr. Stan Tatkin, right? He taught us, he's like my movie star therapist. He's like a big researcher in the marital field. And we were lucky enough to go on a retreat with him, but he was like, plan, predict, prepare for everything. The more a couple plans, predicts, prepares, gives them the opportunity that they're not going to get it right all the time and they can't predict everything, but that they're going to have solutions and a plan for when things go off, which they will.
Yeah. All right. So how about, when was this transition? Because I don't know what you guys were doing coming out of college and as really young people, but like, when were you like, okay, like let's not just do this for ourselves, but let's help other people?
Yeah, I love that question.
So, it was
about 10. Well, it was 11-ish years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll take you to 2008. I lost my job. We were $250,000 in debt, and I had an 8-month-old, and we had to move in with my monster-in-law.
My mom.
Hi.
She agrees with me. That's why I can joke. That's why I can joke.
I'm laughing because it's absolutely true.
But it was really embarrassing and humiliating for me. And it was the breaking down of all of pride, ego, whatever facade that I was trying to create. And it was just a complete breakdown. In the midst of that time and that season, we were trying to get ourselves out of debt. And I actually started officiating weddings as kind of like a side gig to get money and we could pay debt off. And I would meet with couples preparing for marriage. And I'm their officiant, so I get to ask them their love story, right? The cake decorator doesn't. They just say, what kind of color cake do you want?
Color cake. How about flavor cake?
Flavor, there you go. But I was able to dig into their story. And then I started sharing my story with these couples. And I'm asking them questions like, so what are you guys doing to prepare for this next season? And a lot of them were like, well, you know what? It's been really fun up to this point. We don't think anything's going to change when we're married. And I was like, this is really not that great. I'm asking for like, well, what resources are you turning towards? And they're like, I don't know, Cosmo. I was like, oh, that's not really good either. So there was a real like eye-opening experience to recognize there's not a lot of resources and tools out there for couples to access. It's, if you're into the Gottman Institute, you're probably someone who's educated, but those are really hard principles to apply if you're just a stay-at-home mom, dad, you work in marketing or communications, or, you're not someone who's hip to all those terms of attachment theory or the love maps of your house. It's like you needed something more concrete. Like, hey, can you just tell me what do I need to do next? Mm-hmm. And so fast forward, we started to be brave and courageous by sharing how bad it was online. And that following quickly turned into hundreds and thousands. And then I think there was enough people in our lives that cared about us and said, this is really hitting something in a need in people's lives. And they're responding in a really positive way. You guys should do something about it. And Meygan and I aren't business people. So it's kind of thrust upon us. We were accidental entrepreneurs. And for the past 10 years, it's been really figuring things out, learning and growing and getting hungry about business and watching the business grow.
Yeah. And I think like we've written books and, we speak and things like that. And then COVID happened, right? And we've always wanted to be online because we knew that that's where the world was going. And once COVID hit, we went from 5 employees to now 17 employees. Wow. And it's been amazing because, if we always tell people, if you have an opportunity where you have an amazing marriage and family therapist, please go to therapy. Mm-hmm. If you have the funds and you have the time and you have, the person, go. But we've learned that most people actually don't. And it's, what do? You're stuck and you need help right then and there. Right. And so it's been amazing, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of hurting people out there, and you guys already know this, but I always want to tell people there's so much hope and there's so many resources. And I'm so glad people are listening to this podcast right now because I just know we live in a very hopeless world, but there's so much hope.
Oh, and I have goosebumps. Thank you for sharing. And because we were doing our podcast just like for fun while seeing like 35 couples a week. But then when our audience grew and like people from all over the world are like, thank you for code word. Thank you. We binge listen just to because we normalize it and we use all of our own stuff, right? And the tools that have worked for us, we still continue to fight. But it's like, I love talking to other couples who've used their own, I call it like train wrecks, and that have gotten through them in order to help others. Just like, I think it was last week on our podcast, it hasn't come out yet. I started crying because so many people give up so quickly. And if they just were willing to just put in that work, it's so amazing. It's like a freedom that you don't know once you build a secure attachment with your partner. But so many people, like we just had one therapist who came last week and she was like, Tara, this guy says he just wants it done in 3 sessions. And I'm like, girl, if we could do that, we'd have a line around the block. It's not about that. And how do we educate like couples? It took EJ a decade to recognize his defensiveness and avoidance, and me constantly telling him that he's defensive and him saying he's not. Right. But it's just,
hey, that sounds familiar. I think that same conversations happened with the Castons over here.
But just like some of our favorite speakers have been like the two of you who've built what you have because it's supporting other people and it's practical and it's realistic. And it's because it's out of your own heart and your own suffering. And how can we make the world suffer a little bit less?
Thank you.
Well, and I think like what this new like sort of like, media involved in wellness offers is it really like one of the things that we try to sell people on is like actually having a healthy relationship is like a lifestyle, that like it has to be something that is about a way in which you live together, which involves a lot of self-accountability, a lot of looking at yourself, a lot of like saying like, hey, all human beings got to grow and let's try to do this together. And, it sounds like you're doing similar things to us as far as like, you just want to build a community of people where there's some resources that are, if not free, or, like
easily
accessible because yeah, you're right. Not everybody can go to therapy. not everybody like really is open to it. But if we can get in the cracks with just sharing some information where, I've seen like some really great stuff that you guys have on your, just in your shorts around funny things, like around intimacy and sex of like, one I'm thinking of is like basically, Meygan, all you got to do is take a sock off and Casey thinks you're ready to have sex. That's like funny.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's real. It's like there is, and it's not always male, female or male, female, female. Like there's always that one person who's just a little more like, yeah, let's go. And just those little insights like open people's eyes to like, oh, like I'm not alone here. Like this is a normal thing for us to be dealing with.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it takes a lot to be vulnerable and share our biggest failures, fights, and mistakes. But I will tell you, with that gives people the opportunity to also share their biggest failures, mistakes with other people. And that's typically what happens in the marriage space, right? It's not necessarily on social media or in big ways, but it's in these small conversations you have with your next door neighbor or the lady at drop off at your kid's school, And Tarah, I was thinking about how you were saying it's like a lifestyle. And I think about how, like we're counting down the days for the empty nest phase. Not going to lie. We got 6.5 more years. Okay. So we have a preteen and a teenager, and our daughter's 16. So she's only got a couple more years. I moved out of the house when I was 18. Could happen. I don't know. But, who knows? But parenting is it's a journey, right? And there's these different stages and there's no quick fix. And you go to the gym. Casey and I love to work out together, and there's no quick fix in the gym. Like if you really want to be active and build muscle and get healthy with, for whatever your reasons are, you can't go one time to the gym and be like, yeah, look at the difference. Right. And I just think about, I think we want the quick fixes. We want the quick wins, and we'll give you quick wins at Marriage 365. Like we've got a long list of things. Like if you just need a quick win in your marriage, here you go. But at the core, you guys are right. It is a mindset. It is a lifestyle that if you want to make a better marriage, it makes, make a better you. And that is just a long season. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
Yes. There's a statistic that I share because, right, that grass is greener. I'm like, look, first marriage divorce rate, I think right now it's around 48, 49%. I haven't looked recently. Second divorce rate, it's like 67%. Third marriage, it's like 70s. I'm like, something follows you. It's not just about, you could marry someone for the second time who is totally different, yet a couple years later, the same stuff happens. And so we always, couples are like, we want to guarantee that if we go through relationship renovation, we are going to be great. And we're like, listen, we cannot promise that. All we can say is you will have more clarity and you'll be able to make a decision out of clarity instead of fear. And a lot of this counseling we do is, right, how do we become our best selves together, right? And so we don't have that like, but it's just like recognizing that it's not this fast, or that some other person, yes, they're going to make the suffering go away for a bit because you're going to be distracted, but the same core issues are going to present themselves no matter how many relationships you're in. Sorry, I just got off on that tangent. You're giving me the look, EJ. He's giving me the look, Meygan.
I'm buying what
I don't
you're
know if you saw it.
Well, we can tell you for sure that is accurate, as our parents have been married a total of 12 times. Right. So we can tell you that they keep looking for the quote unquote right person, yet they're never looking within themselves to say what's broken or hurting in myself.
When I asked my mom, I'm like, Mom, 6 times. And she's like, I don't know how to pick them. And I'm like, well, you should stop picking then.
If you're a bad shopper, just stop shopping.
Yes, exactly.
That's a good point.
Well,
that's funny.
All right. So I mean, tell us, give us a little peek underneath the hood, and somebody who's listening, who's really, connecting with you guys and they want to hear more, like, tell us about Marriage 365. Like what is it?
I think our community is made up of people that have the same value systems as us. And that is, I want to have a healthy, connected relationship. I may not know how to get there, but I'm looking for kind of hope and inspiration and instruction on how to do that. So that's our community at large on social media. But really the true resource that everyone knows us by is our app. So download our app, Marriage 365, in the App Store. And what that does is gives you access to video content. So kind of like you guys, you guys are teaching couples how to do marriage. we stuck ourselves in front of a camera, and rather than doing coaching to one-on-one basis, I thought, how can we scale this and create like bigger impact than just the two of us one-on-one with a couple? Well, what if we film ourselves? Like, instead of telling couples, you need to apologize, let's teach them how to
Love
apologize.
it. Demonstration.
So we came up with the 4-step apology.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. One of the best plans and tools that people know us by is our weekly marriage business meeting, right? So we explain that in a video. So you could watch the video.
You can print out the worksheet and use it.
And then you can actually use it. And it would be like you were getting coaching from Casey and Meygan in this video without ever having to raise your hand and say, hey, can we schedule some time with you? Because that's expensive. Yeah. And we really wanted to create something affordable for the couples. Like, well, you were talking about earlier, like if you can't afford a therapist, if there's not a good therapist around you. During COVID, there was like a 6-month wait for the really good ones. People needed help right now. We were giving this on-demand solution. And what's really cool is there's really nothing out there like that. So,
and we do offer coaching. So if couples are watching the videos and they still get stuck, we do offer online coaching as well.
But it sounds like you guys really have these videos that are just like, here it is, here's a demonstration here. Because there's so many times like where we're in session and I'll say, oh, sir, or ma'am, can you guys come sit where I'm sitting and I'm going to take your seat. And I'm actually showing them how to do it, the words. And they are like, this feels so embarrassing. And I'm like, no, I get it. But the more you practice it, it starts to become a skill that you're learning, but I'm going to have to model it for you because it's not in your skill set yet. Even that idea of just active listening, or, hey, I heard that's what you said. Is that what I'm hearing correctly? Like, we don't say that. We make up our own narrative. Like, hello, that makes.
Yeah, no, like an example is, I think a lot of people, they don't even know what emotional flooding is. And so they don't know what's happening to them, right? And so we explain what's happening to them when they're emotionally flooded or when their wife or husband is triggered. And then we talk about and give them ideas on like, okay, this is the code word technique, or, here's how you cool off. And they're like, oh, well, I just go watch TV. I'm like, that's like the worst way to go cool off because it could trigger you. So we're going to actually show you and teach you healthy ways like stretching and praying and journaling or going to take a walk to, calm down and get yourself back.
But I think the better thing, when I think something even better than that was people ask us, what are boundaries? How do you create boundaries and communicate boundaries in relationships? And we understand that need because people are lost on boundaries. Huge. I get it. But in our video, Meygan and I actually turn towards each other and then model that behavior where we're communicating like, this is how you share with your spouse a healthy boundary. And then we actually script it out for them. And I think that those are the types of, I don't want to say hand-holding, but just look at, like, we came from destroyed and blown up families. No one's sitting down. Exactly. My parents are sitting down modeling us boundaries or apologies or how do you communicate when you're flooded or what to do. So watching us do that is actually part of that healing journey for a lot of people.
I mean, I think like, for the most part, the idea is we just got to figure it out on our own. And that's just, it's sad, it's lonely, you feel isolated. And I love what you're saying there is like, hey, let's create a place where people can go, can normalize, like this is normal stuff you're going to deal with. And then giving them like some real direct, like here, try this out. Give it a shot. And because we know, and that's a beautiful thing about being a couple who's doing it like you guys are doing it, is we know it actually works. And it doesn't erase the difficulty. It doesn't like completely inoculate from us from ever having an argument. But I'll tell you, we're much better at it than we used to be. I'm a better person now than I was before I married Tarah, and I'm grateful for that with her. And I'm just like stoked to see you guys are doing it too.
I know.
EJ, that reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. I wouldn't say favorite as in like it excites me. It actually does motivate me. It's Henry David Thoreau said, "Many men live lives of quiet desperation and die with their song still inside them." Yeah. And I just, if I think about that at 2 a.m., I'm like, get out of bed and I'm like, pacing inside the room. Like, how do I get the men and women that are living in quiet desperation, living in that shame, living in the unknown, are too scared to raise their hand. It's like, you know what? Then I'll go first. I'll be the one that's vulnerable. Meygan and I have always said, we'll be the ones that go first in terms of sharing our vulnerabilities and our embarrassing stories.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that gives someone courage to say, okay, if Casey could do that.
Yeah.
And listen, if you're out there and you can, I am like the least likely to succeed in marriage. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
It's true.
Well,
The guy who was, this is funny. The guy who was anti-therapy.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could go through the list. The anti-therapy guy, the one who would never admit he was wrong,
Avoider.
an avoider, a flighter, like you name it. He checks all the boxes. And for him to be able to be here and actually now do this with his wife and face challenges head on, I would agree. I mean, we're the least likely couple to succeed in general, but I would say for Casey, coming from he had way more childhood baggage than even I did. He has overcome some of the life's biggest obstacles.
Yeah.
And it is hopefully an encouragement to someone listening that just feels like completely defeated.
And can I ask this? Because I feel like this would be such like a good like ribbon.
Wrap it up in a bow.
Because we call it at our center, like when our couples make the shift, it's usually like right after the messy middle. And this shift happens and it's beautiful. And it's what keeps us doing what we do. For you, Casey and Meygan, like that shift from where you were to where you are now, can you just explain whether it's the feeling of it? You can make it into a metaphor, but how would you describe it?
Oh, did you want me to go?
Yeah.
You're struggling with it?
I'm just.
Are you thinking? Are you processing?
I'm processing it right now.
Okay.
That's a great question, though. By the way,
I think for me, it was probably about, I'd say 7 or 8 years ago, when I recognized that we could talk about in-laws, money, and the business without having it become very toxic. And I felt like we're actually a team in this. Like, so we were utilizing the tools and they became, let me say this. I think that when you start utilizing any tools you learn in therapy or on this podcast, it is awkward at first because it's new,
Right.
and anything that's new is awkward. It stopped becoming awkward about 7 or 6 years ago when we really embraced anything that came our way. And we had this team mindset with every conversation, with every bit of conflict. It was like, we don't have the answers right now, but we're going to figure this out. For me, that was my shift.
I don't know if there was ever like a demarcation line for me. I feel like it's been an ever evolving experience where I think that by teaching someone the proper apology or the 4-step apology, I am internalizing that. And then I'm starting to use that tool or the weekly marriage business meeting or the 60-second blessing. And as I teach it, I'm almost like it's bouncing back to me. And I'm like, yes, that's right. So I feel like the biggest beneficiary of Marriage 365 is Casey Caston.
That's awesome.
It's just, it's freedom, right? Freedom to be me. Even when I mess it up, I know that the cool thing is like, I know that EJ, no matter how imperfect I am, there's not going to be threats of divorce. There's not going to be threats of leaving. Like, we're in it together. We have a ton of respect. We still have a ton of growing to do, but it's that safety piece that's just allows you to be free. And when do we ever get that? Never. Very rarely.
Never.
Can I just say too, the influencer culture, you need to put your best foot forward, and there's kind of a facade. And it's really sad to hear that, some famous people out there, would kind of laugh and giggle on a podcast and the next week get divorced. It just, there's like, that to me that's actually really scary to think that kind of was under the surface happening, and that they had to play act in front of other people. And so, with Meygan and I, it's people say, is it hard for you guys to get on camera and do this? I was like, no, because once the camera turns on, we don't turn into different people. It's just, it's just the same. It's like
Oh,
Okay.
we have fought on podcasts. We have fought on camera. We've canceled film days because if we're not right with
Yeah.
each other, it's going to come across as disingenuine, and authenticity is both one of our core values. And so we're not motivated by fakeness and facade. So, hey, even the marriage experts, right? I mean, we fight, we argue, we've got our own mess too. And the thing is to embrace it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's what makes it like sort of like, that genuineness that you're talking about is that like, if I say that I got it figured out, then I got problems, whether that's helping one person or a couple, like that's a bad place to be sitting in. And I love that you own that as well. Like authentically that like, it's never gonna totally be 100% easy, but as long as you're working on yourselves and you're being honest and you're holding each other accountable and you're finding kind ways to say difficult things, there's a pretty good chance that one, you're going to be able to help people, but also your relationship is going to get better and better. But
I wanted to add really quickly. We've been married 20 plus years now. I will say it has gotten a lot easier because we use the tools. Not to say we don't fight. Of course, we still argue. We still get in, bicker, we bicker and here and there. But when we're actually following the tools that you guys teach, that we teach, it is actually a lot easier and it's way more enjoyable. And I think as we've gotten older, one of the things that Casey and I will always make sure is a priority is fun. Like for us, if marriage cannot be all work and no play. Like it's
I'm not showing up for that.
We don't show up for that.
Sounds
we
really
have
bad.
to have fun. And so it's true. Like it's demotivating when it's all work.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there because I know that people that are hurting are like, how do you have fun? It's like, we've always made sure that somehow we have fun and we connect and we laugh even through the hard moments.
Well, I think we could talk for another hour if we could. But I really want to just say that one of the best parts of this interview, I feel, is like this has been very aspirational. Is that a lot of the people who listen to our podcast are listening in a place of a lot of despair and fear, and you guys have really just clearly communicated the fact that like, the work is worth it. And that there's like great resources out there. If anyone in the audience is interested, Marriage 365, we'll throw a tag down in our show notes. Whether it's us, it's them, it's somebody you connect with. The message that we're both peddling, it sounds like, is just put the work in, be accountable, grow together, and get help. I think that was another big thing aspirationally that you said is you guys both got some help, and that it's made all the difference. So thank you, Casey. Thank you, Meygan.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to speak with you guys.
We would love to have you on a different episode and talk about like intimacy in the bedroom. I think that would be, or intimacy after kids, something we'll discuss after our podcast. But
we're going to talk about sex?
Yes.
I'm in.
That would be awesome.
Casey hears the word intimacy and thinks sex. So there you go, which is a pretty typical.
I think lingerie.
I think white sock. No, just kidding.
All right, guys.
And I just want to say, if you have not been to Marriage 365's Instagram, some of the best videos ever. I wish, I'm like envious of that because all of that just freaks me out. I'm so glad we now have a YouTube channel. So we just put our show snippets. So, cause I would be like, okay, EJ, we're going to do something around like stuffing things under the rug. Like it caused me so much stress. I'm just not like a social media person, but I love watching all of your videos cause they're so cute. And some are really cute, some are really funny, and some are really serious. So it's a great balance of all of it, I think.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you both. It's a pleasure speaking with you guys.
Thank you so much for listening. Again, we will put everything in our show notes. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. You deserve it. Bye-bye.